Welcome back on this Monday to Morning Line. Nick Ferris here. Glad you are joining us. See the number on the screen, 737-7587. Talking, as you see, about affordable housing, basically here in Davidson County, because this is where a lot of the values are skyrocketing, be it rentals or owning a property. Metro Council persons Berkeley Allen's with us, along with Bob Mendez, taking your calls. The last caller made a few other points. You talked about making some of these affordable units available to folks who are, teachers, police officers, the median income starting $40,000 range. But she also asked, what about some of those that are, the bus drivers and others that maybe aren't quite as much? Many of them who have moved away already. How do you address that?
Well, it is important to remember what Berkeley mentioned about this being a spectrum, and we tend to talk about it in terms of percent of median income. At the very low percentages, those are people that live in poverty. MDHA takes care of that with traditional housing projects. From maybe 30% of median income up to 60 or 80. That's the bus driver. That's somebody who's a hairdresser. They do have a good job. They're very cash strapped. And the biggest tool that's available there are, I guess, two things. One is the Barnes Housing Fund gives money to non-for-profits that are involved in building affordable housing for that income level. And then the second thing Berkeley already mentioned, which is the ability to get property tax freeze under certain circumstances.
Yeah. That can help people. All right, let's go to Brian next. Brian, good morning.
Good morning, Building Town, USA.
Yeah, you know what? Brian, what is the national bird of Nashville?
Oh, it's the mockingbird.
No, you know what it is?
Crane.
It's the crane.
It's the crane. You see them everywhere. They're building.
I'm a little tired.
No. It took me a while to figure that one out. But go ahead. What's your question, Brian?
First of all, moratorium on all new construction building moratorium. I know nobody's going to like that. Second of all, elimination of any TIP financing. Any of the money that would go to acquire or endorse or welcome new businesses building these huge buildings, all that money should go into affordable housing. There's just no question about that whatsoever. One last thing, the guy said something about diversity always makes different things better. I heard him go through a list, and then he said schools. I said, well, that's strange. Is he saying that schools that were mostly of one race had higher scores, the other one had really lower, that combining them will raise the overall scores, or will it just let them settle more towards a median so they can pass national education standards? And number two thing he said, which I thought was really weird, was he said raising pay, it would probably be good for the workers, but it would be bad for the owners or something of that nature. Well, that's totally false, because Henry Ford, if he knows anything about business and history, he encouraged himself to raise the wages of his employers because he thought that then they could afford to buy this product that they were building.
Yeah.
I'm more of the thing that, hey, Nashville's doing great, let's just manage the growth.
Well, manage. He wants a moratorium on building, which that's not an option, obviously. But you want to address some of that? I think I understood what you meant by the diversity thing. I'd like to see.
Right.
Yeah.
So I'll talk about the TIF financing, because this is something we hear. TIF financing, tax increment financing, for certain parts of town, typically downtown. You can get part of your financing by paying your property taxes to your lender. And so it spurs development and keeps some money away from paying for teachers and roads and firefighters. I think there is a place for tax increment financing. Freezing it would be bad. We passed an ordinance earlier this year to put a greater requirement on transparency on the government to let us know what tax increment financing dollars get spent on.
Because we did an investigation on that here at Channel 5.
That's
it was
true.
Because of you.
Well, Ben Hall
Thank you for your work.
Ben Hall did a great job on that, but go on.
He did.
Yeah.
Well, and when I was campaigning last year, and I think most of the people in the council agree that greater transparency will lead to resolving debates like what we heard this gentleman refer to. The downtown business community tends to love tax increment financing, and the farther to the edge of the county you get, people tend to hate it because they think it's just getting used to pay for downtown and it doesn't do anything for them. I believe that greater transparency about what the dollars are being spent on will lead to us making better decisions about how to use that tool.
All right, let's go to Jeanette. Hi, Jeanette.
Hi, how are you?
Good. What's on your mind?
Well,
was listening to the gentleman talk a few minutes ago, and he was stating that in terms of, I guess, housing for people, that you can go to MDHA. The question that I have is, MDHA has an extremely long waiting period. For elderly people, what do they do when they're displaced? Because in the Germantown and Gulch area, and this is from experience, what happens is you have someone like the Villages Real Estate Company. They come in, they get, I guess, family members to sell the house, and then the elderly person between 70 and 80 years old has nowhere to live. So what is your solution to that?
Okay.
I mean, this is the problem. This is the problem. You asked what the motivation was to care about this. There's a nearly 20,000 unit deficit of affordable and workforce housing in Nashville, meaning there's 20,000 stories like this where people want to, need to, have to live somewhere in the city and are paying way too much of their income on staying here, being here, and it's an impact on quality of life. And I mean, it's stories like that that are the reason why we've put so much energy in the council over the last year to try to address it. There's so much more work to do. I'm afraid I don't really have a good answer for her about what she can do about that.
And she's accurate on MDHA, the delay, the wait. I imagine, as you just said, there's that deficit. There's got to be a long line.
Yeah, there's a wait, and then they also have their voucher program, which would enable people to take the voucher to apartment units and live there, which would be great, except that there's, 75% of those have been used, and 25% of those are there just aren't apartments available where the landlords will take those. So if we could expand the number of landlords that are willing to take Section 8 vouchers, that could make a dent in at least one piece of that problem.
How would you do that? How would you do that?
I think it just takes a really good PR program. I mean, I think making landlords aware of the problem and maybe making them more aware of what the services provided to those tenants are, and that they are regular folks. They just need a place to live. There are support services that can make sure that they are good tenants for the property, and it would help make a dent in the number of people that need a place to go.
And the other thing that would make a dent, the development community would say this is economics 101, supply and demand. If demand is high, then supply fixes it. And the development community would say, give us less regulation, let us build, and once we build, doesn't matter what kind of units we build, that will increase supply. And
so the price would come down, perhaps.
That's the argument.
The theory.
Yeah, it's tricky on that, isn't it?
Yes.
Okay, let's go to Mary. Hi, Mary. Oh, I guess we just lost Mary. She was waiting for us. Do you see then, and by the way, we've got the lines open if you want to jump in. I apologize if I hung up on Mary, 737-7587. Are we seeing any kind of increase in the homeless population because of this? Is there any part of that yet? Or, I mean, well, I'm just thinking of this last caller, Jeanette, referencing, gosh, I hate the thought of someone, in their 70s all of a sudden not having I mean, ultimately, where do they go? And we don't have a good answer for that. I'm just wondering, is that any part of it? Union admission's always full.
Right.
I don't know, but my suspicion is that it spills over to the outlying counties more than it creates homelessness.
Okay, so is that where we think they're going then? If you can't find in Davidson County, they're moving more out of county, and then that's even farther, a greater distance they need to travel for work, right?
Right, and typical social services like hospitals. People who at the lower end of income tend to use the same couple hospitals that are in the city, and that safety net for medical services is pretty difficult if all of a sudden you live in a different county.
Yeah, I mean, when you talk about building supply and demand, so right now as we stand, there is more demand than supply? Is that pretty much it?
Absolutely.
Way more.
For affordable and workforce housing.
Right.
What's not selling? I know you guys aren't real
So
estate.
far, everything is filling in, but there's an awful lot of high-end being built. It will be interesting to see.
To see if there's enough people to purchase these high-end. Because, yeah,
Right.
there's a lot of high-end
Right.
being built, but the big demand is for, I mean, someone could be in a position, you would think, if they would build something like that, to make a fortune, if they would,
Right.
to tap into the demand for affordable housing, right?
Yeah, and there are some developers that are doing that, and I think they're having good luck. This is economics. If you want to be sure about making a lot of money and you've got confidence that Nashville is going to keep growing fast, then high end is a healthy amount of profit, a safe amount of profit.
Right.
To aim for workforce housing, which has a lower price point, smaller units, developers will tell you that that's they have to be more cautious in going about that because the margin of error is smaller and it's easy for them to not make money on a project.
Okay, that makes sense.
And also, I would say, just in Nashville's current market right now, land prices are incredibly high, and construction prices are incredibly high because everybody's building at the same time. And so those two things, I think, make it harder even for the people that are aiming for the workforce market. The rent that they have to pay is getting pushed up to some extent simply by what they have to pay to buy the land and to build the property.
Materials.
And maybe the market will fix that, but it's not going to do it without some help right now until conditions change.
Understand. All right, listen, let's take a break on that note. When we come back, final segment with our guests. More of your calls right after this. Stay with us.